Discover how a 9-year-old girl's incredible bravery transformed a billionaire's life forever. Lucy Mitchell sat in the library, her small hands tracing the bold letters of the title of a science book, Alchemy of the Stars. She was supposed to be in the playground, laughing with her friends, but the thought of her father's recent illness tightened her chest. Her heart ached, not just for him, but for the weight of worry pressing down on her family. Everyone in her town knew the struggle, the bills piled high, their fridge too often empty. She couldn't help but dream of a life unburdened by constant financial concern. The upcoming science fair loomed like hope, a way out of her family's despair. But doubt crept in as she scanned the pages. What if the project failed? What if she couldn't pull it off and her plans crumbled to dust? She dared not voice those fears. It would make them real. That I in the cafeteria, laughter echoed around her, but she shut it out. Social norms felt like a weight too heavy to lift, given her current reality. Instead, she rehearsed her idea, piecing together every detail of the solar system model in her mind. It could be beautiful, better than anything she had ever created. Yet, would it be enough? She questioned every flicker of inspiration, the small voice in her head echoing the doubts of her classmates. She'll fail. She's just a girl with big dreams. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Days passed, and with them climbed the pressure. Every tick of the clock sounded louder, each distraction driving the urgency deeper into her core. Anxiety became her silent companion, gnawing away at her resolve. In moments of solitude, her hands would tremble, the thought of failure wrapping around her like a vice. Her family deserved so much more, they'd already sacrificed so much. What if she let them down? A tide of nausea washed over her as she recalled her father's hopeful smile despite his pain, how he struggled but never complained. She couldn't just walk away from that smile, she had to fight, but just when it seemed her plan might work, disaster struck. The scientific model, her meticulous creation, the centerpiece of her dream, collided with a simple, heavy gravity mistake. One clumsy turn, and her starry visions shattered. The pieces lay scattered across her desk, mocking her hopes. Despair seeped in. This was failure at its rawest, pure and unrelenting. Would her family cast disappointed glances her way? Would they have to face another year of hardship? Her chest felt tight, breath shallow as she cradled the shattered project, an embodiment of her fears. How could she conjure resolve from this abysmal darkness? The stakes couldn't be higher, her family's future tinged with shadows. Lucy found herself on the edge, teetering between childhood dreams and the harsh grip of reality. As the clock ticked down to the science fair, she realized she carried the weight of something far greater than her fragile dreams. But would she find the strength to try and rebuild from the ruins, or would the enormity of failure claim her spirit? The answer remained painfully out of reach, teetering at the edge of her vision, as the day approached threateningly. Lucy stared at the disassembled pieces of her solar system model, each fragment stained with the trauma of unmet expectations. Her hands shook as she touched the cracked planets, the colors of her hopes now dulled. This was supposed to be her redemption, a way to lift the weight of worry off her family's shoulders. Instead, it felt like she had dragged them deeper into the abyss. As panic washed over her, she closed her eyes, trying to block out the overwhelming sense of failure that threatened to paralyze her. Yet, in that moment of despair, a flicker of resolve ignited within her. Failure was familiar, her entire life had been a series of setbacks and challenges. What if this was just another obstacle meant to be overcome? The thought wrestled with her emotions. Just last week, she had seen a flicker of pride in her father's eyes as he watched her sketches. Was she really going to let that admiration slip through her fingers over a project? Gritting her teeth, Lucy took a deep breath, feeling the air fill her lungs. It was time to face the daunting task of rebuilding. She needed a plan. As she scoured the remnants of her project, a surge of inventive thinking uncoiled within. She could create something new, something better. Determination now fueled her ambition. Inch by inch, she picked up the pieces, envisioning an even grander model, a solar system that was not only visually stunning but one that could convey a narrative of resilience. While sketching out her ideas, she imagined her father standing before her creation, beaming not just at the model, but at the spirit that fueled it. What if she added layers to her planets, each one telling a story of struggle and triumph? This model could represent more than just scientific facts, it could embody hope. This was a project her father would understand, one born from their shared journey through hardship. With newfound vigor, Lucy raided the arts and crafts supply closet and rallied her friends. She felt a sense of empowerment as she delegated tasks, transforming her panic into a symphony of collaboration. Each friend brought their unique ideas, talents she had never considered before. Lucy discovered a hidden competency within herself: leadership. As they brainstormed, laughter and encouragement filled the air, erasing the weight of her earlier doubts. Prompted by the lively buzz around her, Lucy made a conscious decision to confront her fears. It's okay if it's not perfect, she reminded herself more than anyone. It's about the effort, the story behind it. Each brush stroke, each layer of glittering paint was not just for aesthetics, it was about embodying the struggles they faced together. However, the pressure was still mounting, the science fair was breathing down her neck. With every day that passed, Lucy felt that familiar tightness creep back into her chest, the shadows of doubt whispering that she could still fail. Yet, in a shining contrast to her earlier despair, she began to cherish that tension, a signal that she was on the brink of something transformative. As she stood beside her friends, painting the final details of their combined creation, a realization struck her: the journey had become just as important as the destination. The bond forged with her friends through collaboration and shared struggles would far outweigh any accolades from the science fair. Lucy glanced at the clock, the hands moving steadfastly toward the big day. Would her model pull through and create the ripple effect she envisioned? Did she have the courage to stand before everyone and present not just a piece of art, but a narrative built on resilience? The questions weighed heavy as she saw the science fair looming before her, full of uncertainty. With one last stroke of paint, she paused, feeling the weight of not just expectation, but potential. Answers were coming, but would she be ready to seize them? The next day would shift everything, there was no turning back now. Morning light streamed through the window, casting a golden glow on Lucy's nearly completed solar system model. It stood in the middle of her room, vibrant and alive with color, each planet adorned with stories of struggle and triumph. Yet, despite the visual feast before her, Lucy felt a gnawing anxiety deep within her chest. Today, she would showcase her creation in front of classmates, teachers, and perhaps even some judges who could bring her dreams to fruition or shatter them. Her friends had shared their sketches, ideas, and laughter over the past week, each moment adding a layer of warmth to the cold anxiety. Still, standing before the model that had taken on a life of its own, she felt the weight of responsibility settle heavily on her shoulders. It was no longer just a school project. It was a testament to her growth, a reflection of all the hard work and shared struggles. With a deep breath, she leaned closer to inspect her work, hesitant to put a final seal on its fate. What if it failed? A lingering voice whispered in the back of her mind, testing her resolve. But then she reminded herself of the journey, the chaos, the collaboration, the moments of doubt that had ultimately birthed something beautiful. Lucy recalled the night when she had gathered her friends for a late-night brainstorming session. They sat in a circle, each fueled by sugary snacks and the thrill of creativity, exchanging dreams alongside their materials. In that small room, Lucy had felt like a conductor, guiding the symphony of ideas that flowed through them. Now that energy was palpable on the canvas of her model, and she couldn't let fear diminish that brilliance. As she transformed her model into a narrative piece, the stories she crafted became increasingly personal. The gleaming sun represented her dreams and aspirations, each planet reflecting a chapter of growth. Mars embodied her stubbornness, one she had struggled with since childhood. Saturn, with its rings, signified the support from family and friends, encircling her much like their unyielding encouragement. Lucy's heart swelled with pride as she backed away to observe her work. Vision poured through her veins as she pondered how to draw connections between the elements that made her model unique. What if she communicated this narrative to the audience? What if she shared her journey, not simply displaying the model as a dry representation of the solar system? Time slipped away, and she glanced at the clock again. Hours had passed with her heart pounding fervently. The impending presentation loomed like an unseen weight. Did she possess the courage to share her story? The thought sent a shiver down her spine. What if the audience saw her as just another kid seeking attention, rather than someone bearing a message of resilience? Determined, Lucy made a decision. While her model represented scientific accuracy, it would also serve as a vessel threading personal struggles with universal themes. She envisioned her voice rising above the sounds of doubt, speaking not only to the judges but to anyone who had ever felt small in the face of failure. As she prepared to leave the house, a fresh wave of confidence swept over her. Each step toward the venue felt like a stride into her future. Would the nervous girl from a week ago recognize the one standing before her now? Beyond any recognition, the certainty of her journey thrummed within, echoing the whispers of her friends and the warmth of her family. But as Lucy took a deep breath and stepped into the hall, she couldn't shake the lingering shadows of uncertainty. What if her voice cracked? What if the crowd didn't respond the way she hoped? As the door to the presentation room swung open, she stepped inside, feeling the collective gaze land upon her, the spotlight she had both yearned for and dreaded. This was it. The moment she had prepared for, filled with endless possibility. Would her voice resonate and transform not just her standing but the very nature of how she viewed herself? As she looked out into the sea of faces, she realized she was ready for the challenge. Yet just as she began her first sentence, an unexpected figure appeared at the back of the room, casting a long shadow that sent her pulse racing anew. Lucy's heart raced as she spotted the figure in the doorway, a tall, imposing silhouette that stood apart from the sea of familiar faces. The anxiety built like a coiling spring within her, emotions swirling and colliding, threatening to drown her confidence in a flood of uncertainty. Was it the judges? Did they come to judge her work or to judge her? As she took a hesitant breath, her voice trembled, but the first words hit the air with surprising clarity. Hello, everyone. I'm Lucy, and today I want to take you on a journey through our solar system. She summoned the image of her model, rooted deeply in her mind. Each planet embodied not just a celestial body but the essence of her struggles and victories. Gradually, the tension began to ease as she shifted her focus onto the narrative she had crafted. The unexpected figure at the back remained still, an outsider shrouded in mystery, a potential disruptor. But Lucy pushed the figure to the background of her thoughts, leaning into the world of her model. As she described the fiery core of the sun that represented her dreams, she slowly felt her footing stabilize. The more she spoke, the less she noticed the audience, the less the doubts crept in. Mercury, she said, is about my determination, always racing ahead, but at times hovering too close to the heat of failure. Laughter and nods filtered through the audience like a soothing balm. Lucy noticed that there was something palpable in the air now. Her small vulnerability radiated warmth, connecting with her classmates and teachers, dissolving the shadows of fear that had plagued her journey. Confidence ignited as she continued. Venus reminds me that beauty can bloom amidst chaos, just like how this project was cultivated from our late-night brainstorming sessions filled with laughter and ideas. But just as she felt herself grasping the audience's attention, the imposing figure moved. The room shifted. Lucy's eyes flickered back to the stranger, now stepping into the light. It was an unfamiliar man, dressed in a tailored suit, a sharp contrast to the casual atmosphere of the classroom. His expression was inscrutable, yet Lucy felt a pull to address him, a challenge to find out why he was here. Pushing those thoughts aside, she focused on her story, her heart still pounding as she transitioned to Mars and Saturn. And here lies the lesson of Mars. Stubbornness isn't just about resisting change, it's about resilience. I learned that asking for help like I did with Saturn's rings isn't a weakness but rather a way to grow. Her words flowed, but the man's presence felt like an anchor holding her tethered, demanding her awareness even as she spoke her truth. The warmth of connection she had initially felt was beginning to slip, replaced by a distracting chill. Would he disrupt her flow? "Let me show you Uranus and Neptune," she exclaimed, her voice kicking back into motion. "These planets are about facing the unknown, navigating dark waters, just like each of us does in our lives, and today's journey is proving that to myself." Yet the man moved closer, his piercing gaze fixated on her model. Lucy's heart sank. Was he simply an onlooker, judging her as she shared the most intimate parts of her storytelling? She thought of her friends, their laughter and encouragement echoing in her mind. She thought of all the hard work and the brilliant nights spent creating something meaningful. Determination surged anew. She refused to let the man or anyone overshadow her moment. This was her story to tell. As she stepped closer to her model, her voice stronger, she resolved to finish with unyielding courage, weaving together each lesson, unsure if the figure's intentions were supportive or predatory. Would the shadow at the back bring clarity to her presentation, or would it serve only as an obstacle to overcome? As Lucy reached for a powerful closing statement, her eyes locked with the man's, a chill ran down her spine. What truths lay hidden in his gaze? With her heart weighted by uncertainty, she steadied herself. This wasn't merely a presentation, it was an awakening, her journey speaking out boldly against forces both known and unknown. And now, the final flourish awaited. Would it be explosive or devastating? Lucy inhaled deeply, poised on the precipice of revelation. As Lucy's gaze held firmly onto the stranger, the room seemed to blur into a spectrum of colors and sounds that pulsed around her, giving a surreal quality to the moment. The crowd faded in and out of focus, her world narrowing down to just their two pairs of eyes. Ignoring the rising tension in her chest, she dug deeper, leveraging her own conviction which now fueled her voice. "Today, I'm not merely presenting these planets," she asserted, her tone more commanding. "I'm presenting pieces of myself, my story, my growth. Just as every child in this room grows and changes, so do the celestial bodies that orbit our sun. They remind us that our experiences, no matter how small, are significant." With each declaration, she felt an exhilarating rush of energy coursing through her, like a comet blazing across the night sky. It was the realization that she was not just talking about planets, but about her own challenges and triumphs. There was a whiplash shift in her confidence as she faced the crowd once again. They were leaning in, whispers of encouragement threading through the air, but the man, he loomed like a distant planet, a mysterious force with unknown gravitational pull. Lucy wondered how much he could see, how much he could interpret from her performance. Did he sense her fear, the relentless doubts that had accompanied her work? "What if he judges me?" she thought, and a flicker of uncertainty threatened to extinguish her fire. Yet, another notion blazed brighter. The very essence of her presentation was about resilience. She could not let his judgment dictate her worth. This was her moment. As she ventured into the final segment of her presentation, she focused on the echoes of her friends' laughter, the late-night brainstorming sessions that had birthed this project. They had believed in her, pushed her past her fears, and now they were with her in spirit, backing her every word. "And here we have the remnants of the great silence, a space that reflects our potential to embrace solitude as a pathway to clarity," she stated, pausing slightly to gauge the figure's facial expressions. "This is where the magic happens, in the quiet moments when we face our inner fears and emerge wiser from the depths." With a bold stroke, Lucy declared, "Today, I choose to embrace the universe within, just as each of you should embrace your own journeys." A swell of applause swept through the audience, carrying her even higher. Pride swelled in her chest, but she remained acutely aware of the man's gaze, unyielding as he observed her every move. She sensed there was more to him than simply being an audience member. Curiosity and judgment danced in his eyes, creating an internal conflict for her. The presentation concluded, and Lucy took a step back, her heart racing with exhilaration. She had shared her world, she had crafted something meaningful from the raw material of her insecurities. The man seemed to shift, breaking the strict mold of his observational role. As he opened his mouth, she felt her breath catch in her throat. Impressive, he said, his voice smooth yet authoritative, cutting through the buzz of chatter around her. But what would you do if I offered you a chance to present this idea on an even larger platform where your voice can echo beyond these walls? The question struck like a meteor bolt, sparking a cascade of thoughts in Lucy's mind. Could she step into this unknown, driven by ambition rather than fear? The weight of possibility hung in the air, both thrilling and intimidating. And as she stood before the audience, caught between her past and an uncharted future, she realized that this was more than a decision about a presentation, it was a defining moment. Would she dare to venture forth? Would she seize this bold new opportunity? The tension lingered, pulsating as she crafted her response, aware that the next steps could shape the trajectory of her life in ways she could scarcely imagine. As the applause dwindled, Lucy felt the remnants of adrenaline coursing through her veins. Each beat of her heart felt like a drum, reminding her that she had just stepped into a divergent path, a path that could either elevate her or expose her vulnerabilities. The stranger stood before her, the weight of his proposition hanging palpably in the air. She wasn't merely responding to an opportunity, she was facing a pivotal moment of truth. "What does that platform look like?" she finally asked, striving to mask her nerves with curiosity. His expression shifted slightly, a glimmer of appreciation flickering in his eyes at her inquiry. "It's a conference that highlights innovative thinkers. We look for voices that inspire like yours today. But I need to know if you're ready to take that leap," he said, his tone laced with challenge. Lucy's mind raced. The prospect excited her, an opportunity to reach people beyond her immediate surroundings would be monumental. Yet, an internal war began. What if they didn't connect with her story? What if her vulnerability was met with indifference or worse, mockery? Drawing deep breaths, she recalled every late-night discussion with her friends, how they believed in her creative visions. They had seen the potential she hadn't recognized in herself. Lucy felt an ember of courage spark, igniting her desire to step into the void of uncertainty. "I can do it. I'm ready," she declared, conviction stitching her resolve. "Good," he said, nodding approvingly. "But presentations are more than just sharing ideas, they require clarity of thought, a strategy to engage your audience, and the ability to handle scrutiny," he continued, his demeanor transforming into that of a mentor. Lucy noted the subtle shift in his authority. It wasn't merely about judgment but a desire to develop potential. "Do you have any experience with public speaking, beyond what we just witnessed?" he probed, eyes narrowing perceptibly. Lucy hesitated, a tumult of past failures swirling in her mind. She had stumbled through her school's debate club, stuttering and overthinking, leaving her filled with embarrassment. The fear of those moments coiled tightly around her. But then, she recalled today the exhilaration of sharing her message, the rapport she'd built with the audience, the thrill of being seen. Perhaps today was proof that she had grown beyond those anxious episodes. "Not formally," Lucy replied, honesty anchoring her response, "but I've been learning. Today was a big moment for me." The man regarded her thoughtfully, his features softening slightly. "Embrace that growth. Identify your voice. You might find that what once paralyzed you can become your greatest ally." His words ignited a realization. Lucy wasn't just ready for this opportunity, she was equipped to reshape it. "What should I focus on?" she asked, the eagerness flooding back as she felt the path of growth unfurling before her. "Craft your story. Every great presentation has a narrative. Don't forget, it's your passion that will resonate. But also remember the power of interaction. Engage them, draw them in, enable them to see through your eyes," he instructed, a spark of enthusiasm in his tone. The challenge invigorated her. This was more than a step forward, it was a rebirth of self-confidence. Lucy nodded, her determination melding into action as ideas formed in her mind, arraying themselves like the solar system she had just presented. But as she contemplated her next moves, an underlying tension surfaced. This man, with his commanding presence and sharp insights, stirred both admiration and apprehension within her. She needed to harness every ounce of her burgeoning ability and subtly navigate this mentorship, gaining both wisdom and understanding. "And what happens if I fail?" she asked, the vulnerability creeping back subtly. If my passion doesn't resonate? Ah, he paused, a knowing smile emerging. Failure is but a stepping stone, an unexpected place of growth. We will find a way to frame it. But first, acknowledge your fears. It's when we confront them that we break free from their hold. Lucy felt an empowering clarity settle within her. Perhaps failure wasn't a pit of darkness but simply another turn in the path, one that would test her resolve rather than define it. With each piece of insight, she felt her confidence solidifying. But another shadow loomed, was the trek ahead fraught with challenges she hadn't considered. The man held a world of experience, yet the dynamics of their relationship left her wondering how far she could truly stretch her wings under his guidance. "Let us get started, then," she declared, an urging of excitement in her voice smothering the remnants of her self-doubt. Time was ticking, she could feel the trajectory of her life shifting once more. The horizon of possibility expanded before her, yet uncertainty remained. Would this venture ignite her potential or lead her astray? The questions clung to her as she began plotting her path, aware that the next few days would demand everything she had, and as she smiled confidently, she felt the echo of his final words reverberate in her mind. Prepare to face the unknown. With her decision made, the pulse of anticipation surged through her, ready for whatever came next. What awaited on this new journey? Would she truly uncover the dimensions of her potential, or would hidden truths about herself come crashing down like asteroids? The universe was vast, and she was prepared to explore. The hum of the city outside faded as Lucy sat in her small apartment, tension coiling in her stomach. Her laptop glowed in the dim light, a blank screen glaring back at her. The challenge lay ahead, and with it, the need for a coherent narrative that would encapsulate her journey from silence to self-expression. Deep breaths would only take her so far. She needed action. Days turned into a blur as she immersed herself in understanding the art of storytelling and public engagement. Online courses, TED Talks, and books became her companions, their words ingraining themselves into her subconscious. Each session filled her with not just knowledge but a burning intensity to articulate her voice. Yet amidst this development, fear lurked within, whispering doubts about whether she could truly connect with others. The initial thrill of opportunity began to wear thin. Midnight reviews of her outline revealed fleeting phrases that lacked punch, moments when reality clashed with aspiration dampened her spirit. Every time she sat before her screen, the cursor blinked at her, demanding a response that remained elusively out of reach, echoing the uncertainty that swelled inside her. Frustration mounted as she stood before the mirror one evening, flipping through imaginary presentation slides in her mind. What was she even trying to convey? The narrative elements felt stilted, forced. As she stared into her reflection, the mask of confidence wavered, revealing a self-harsh truth. The fear of inadequacy morphed into a clenched fist around her creativity. Determined to shatter this fog, she reached out to her closest friends Rebecca and Tyler. She needed their perspectives, their energy infused back into her motivations. Over coffee that weekend, they discussed her ideas, unearthing layers of her experiences that she had nearly buried in the shadows of doubt. People connect with stories that are raw, unfiltered, Rebecca insisted, her hands animated and eyes bright. Don't shy away from the harder moments. They're what made you, you. Lucy nodded, feeling a spark ignite once more. Recalling the vulnerability she had felt when sharing her story, she began to recognize the power behind those moments. Could she harness that intensity to fuel her presentation? Perhaps it was time to embrace the uncertainty rather than hide from it. As she wove their feedback into her narrative, clarity emerged. Every frustration, every stutter, became integral to her tale. In embracing her missteps, she transformed them into stepping stones. The mingling of fear and hope carved a diamond from the rough, illuminating a pathway of authenticity. Days later, she stood before the mirror once more, rehearsing her presentation. Her heart raced, a mixture of excitement and nerves, while her posture straightened. It was no longer merely about presenting, it was about sharing her truth, inviting others into her journey and stoking the fires of shared human experience. Yet, the edginess remained, growing more palpable as the conference date approached. Every completed slide brought her closer to that stage, the stage that now felt more daunting than celebratory. The echo of the man's earlier words returned with an unsettling intensity: prepare to face the unknown. What if her newfound focus wasn't enough to withstand the scrutiny and expectations? Despite the coaching and preparation, the doubt was almost tangible each time she envisioned the crowd. The prospect of exposing her rawest self lay on the horizon like a storm, promising both fear and liberation. The time had come to face, she whispered to herself, cutting through the looming trepidation. This journey was about honesty, growth, and connection. Could she capture the empathy of her audience while risking her vulnerability? With a renewed sense of purpose, Lucy resolved to confront the stage instead of yielding to it. As the days dwindled down, she felt her resolve harden, transforming the uncertainty into an unwavering conviction to own her story. But as she finalizes her script, one nagging question persists: would her commitment to vulnerability resonate or merely expose her to outright critique? The idea that someone in the audience might question her passion, her narrative, or even her worth haunted her thoughts as the countdown began. The platform loomed like a mountain she was about to scale, only it bore the weight of countless eyes and judgments. Could she transform this stage into a launchpad for not only her journey but for mutual empathy? As she readied herself for the final stretch, Lucy felt the ground shift beneath her. A confrontation with her greatest fears and a leap forward toward her destiny awaited just beyond that threshold. But was she truly prepared to face the storm? The answer loomed not in certainty but in the thrill of possibility that danced at the edge of her anticipation. Days passed quickly, and each morning bled into the next with an urgency that tightened the knot in Lucy's stomach. The looming date felt like an insurmountable barrier, a test of everything she had been wrestling with in her mind. Each passing hour served as both a countdown and a reminder of her self-imposed limits. Fear, once a whisper, grew into a cacophony of doubts, echoing relentlessly in her thoughts. She found herself waking at odd hours, torn from sleep by the images of her possible failure catching fire in her mind's eye. Today, she resolved to acknowledge that panic without succumbing to it. Her apartment, with its familiar clutter, bore witness to her turmoil, and she sat there, center stage of her own personal theater. Taking a deep breath, she decided to dissect her worry instead of allowing it to consume her. What was it that truly terrified her? Was it the fear of judgment or the exposure of her vulnerabilities? As she jotted down lines in her notebook, an epiphany pierced through the fog. Vulnerability was not merely a preamble to critique, it could also be a bridge to connection. The umbilical thread binding her to her audience was not just her story, it was her inclination toward openness. The rawness Rebecca encouraged her to embrace stood at the intersection of strength and courage. This realization set her mind spinning with possibilities. Each moment she considered sharing her fears and fallacies illuminated paths to authenticity. They were not simply hurdles to leap over, they were artifacts of her journey, framing her personal development. This process was not about imposing her narrative upon them, it was about forging an alliance of shared experiences. With this newfound perspective, Lucy refocused her script, infusing it with fragments of her truth. Elation coursed through her as words tumbled out with vigor, each sentence holding weight and depth. She recalled the moments of her life where she had felt invisible and the profound shifts that followed when someone saw her for who she really was. Those stories provided her with a treasure trove of insights. She felt more equipped than ever to articulate those instances of transformation. However, the jagged edges of doubt still hovered, persistent shadows nibbling at the corners of her confidence. Was she prepared to face critical eyes, dissecting every syllable she uttered? Each surge of optimism was countered by scars of past failures. Once again, vulnerability played with her mind, shifting between empowerment and self-doubt. As an experiment, Lucy sought to channel her fear. She reached out to an online group for public speakers, a sanctuary of support with a shared goal. Stepping into that virtual arena felt like walking into a storm, a chaotic mix of excitement and anxiety. Personal stories floated through the chat, each person an amalgam of strength and insecurity. In equal measure, the more she engaged, the clearer her own path became. Drawing on their experiences, Lucy cobbled together bits and pieces to strengthen her own. Those reflections served as reassurance, emboldening her to lean into the very aspects of herself she had previously feared. Beneath their collective encouragement, she began to grasp the essence of storytelling, the ability to connect through honesty, not perfection. As she prepared to exit the online group, a message popped up, striking a chord deep within. It's not the applause that's the goal, it's the hearts you touch that matter. Wisdom echoed through her room as she pondered its meaning. It reminded her that real power stemmed from purpose, from an authentic connection with her audience, not from a desire for validation. With fresh resolve, Lucy redoubled her commitment to deliver her truth. But as she swept the cursor across her document to finalize her script, another shadow loomed: her own expectations. What if she still fell short? Would the experience expose the calcified remnants of her doubts or set her free? These thoughts nagged as the final hours crept closer. In a world churning with anticipation, the stage still felt like an insatiable beast ready to devour her spirit. Yet, within that coil of fear lay an undercurrent of excitement. She was teetering on the edge of discovery. Before she knew it, she marked her first line, the precipice of a leap into the unknown. Lucy took solace that she was confronting more than just the audience. She was unraveling layers of her own self, piece by fragile piece. But would this leap free her or entangle her deeper in a web of self-doubt? As she whispered to herself, "This is my moment," her heart raced. The truth was, at the intersection of fear and promise, her greatest transformation awaited. Lucy stared at her screen, terror pulsating in her chest, both an anchor and a life raft. With each blink of the cursor, the words beckoned her into the void of the unknown. This was no mere speech, it was an exploration of self, a daring confrontation with everything she had masked for years. Her fingers hovered, paralyzed by the weight of expectation, both from within and from the unnoticed world outside. Sinking deeper into the troubling layers of her mind, she recalled a childhood experience that unraveled her neatly scheduled life. At 9, she had stood on a stage for the first time, trembling as she recited a poem in front of her peers. The potent cocktail of fear and adrenaline had ignited a longing for connection even then. But that night had closed with an unfamiliar bitterness. The audience's laughter hadn't been supportive, it had etched doubt into her young heart, extinguishing her burgeoning stage presence. Drawing strength from that child, Lucy began weaving her narrative anew. What if she could reinterpret that experience? What if she embraced the laughter as more than ridicule, a shared human reaction, a reminder of the audience's own vulnerabilities? With each keystroke, memories morphed into illustrations, and the fear spiraled into insight. Lucy imagined herself returning to that moment, addressing that little girl face to face. "Your courage to be seen is your greatest strength," she whispered into the silence of her apartment. As her thoughts unraveled, she became aware of the ticking clock reminding her of the imminent date ahead. Would she have the courage to face the stage again? The truth gnawed at her. This was more than a speech, it was an opportunity to reclaim her narrative, to reclaim herself. Yet the ghost of her younger self continued to query the wisdom of such leaps. Determined not to bury the child within, Lucy framed her speech around her journey of fear and recovery. Each anecdote was a brushstroke, painting her truth in vivid hues, a life colored by missteps and transformations. As she shared her path back to the stage, snippets of wisdom from the online group echoed in her ears. Your story could ignite another's courage. Revisiting her childhood self became a focal point, integrating that experience was a bridge to connectedness. Lucy felt less like a solitary figure standing on the brink of judgment and more akin to a navigator charting a shared journey. Would they resonate with her struggles? Would they see themselves in her projections of doubt and vulnerability? However, doubt still loomed over her as the deadline approached. Beneath her newfound resolve, remnants of anxiety clenched in her gut. Had she threaded enough honesty into her script? Would the audience find solace in her recollections, or would they dissect them with merciless scrutiny? Before submitting her speech, Lucy decided to share a small snippet with her online group, inviting their feedback. Each tangible reaction acted as a balm to her exposed nerves. Here, among these strangers who had become allies, she was able to catch glimpses of the powerful impact storytelling could wield. She recognized that fear did not vanish but rather became a companion to her ambitions that in an unexpected turn, as reactions flowed in, she saw familiar reflections. They were not merely affirmations, they resonated with her core. It struck her that vulnerability was a thread, an invisible tapestry capturing both chaos and clarity, but just as she embraced this unity, something unsettling pricked at her consciousness. A member of the group reacted differently. Their critique felt harsh and personal, as if they had peeled back layers of her carefully constructed defenses and exposed raw flesh to the world. The weight of that judgment landed uncomfortably, it stirred a tempest once thought settled. Could she rise above that opinion, or would it define her journey? With an inner determination, Lucy decided to confront that feedback head-on during her next writing session. How could she transform the tension of that critique into a lesson of resilience? Channeling her inner strength, she recognized this was another chance for personal development. She would not be defined by another's opinion, yet as she sat back, ready to forge ahead, one burning question flared in her mind. Would she harness the newfound insights of collective support to mute the negative voices or let them drown out her voice entirely? The notion swam through her thoughts like a tempest, ready to spill over into her next great leap. The day arrived, bright and vibrant, yet Lucy felt the heaviness in her chest as she stood in front of the stage. The moment she had envisioned, the culmination of her journey, loomed ahead. She looked out at the audience, hearts and minds gathered, and felt a rush of determination flood through her. This wasn't merely about presenting her model or sharing her experiences, it was about conquering her fear, transforming her doubts into a narrative of strength. As she stepped onto the stage, her heart pounded like a drum, yet the echo of vulnerability masked a newfound confidence within. Gone was the timid girl of past encounters. This was Lucy, ready to speak her truth. She remembered the powerful words shared in her online group, the resonance of vulnerability, the importance of connection. Good morning, everyone. Today, I'm here to share not just science but a piece of my spirit, she began, instantly feeling the warmth of connection flood the room. The audience's eyes sparkled with curiosity, anticipation swirling in the air. As she meticulously described her solar system model, each planet resonated with aspects of her journey. This is more than a project, it reflects growth, a testament to resilience. The room buzzed with energy, and laughter danced through her anecdotes, transforming her nerves into sheer joy. With every word, each shared struggle, Lucy noticed a gradual shift. Her earlier apprehensions melted away, and her vulnerabilities became triumphs. In that moment, she conquered the shadows of doubt lingering for so long. A powerful realization dawned upon her, they were not just hearing her story, they were connecting with their own battles, their own stories of resilience and perseverance. As she transitioned to the emotional core of her narrative, Lucy's voice gained strength. I once felt small, overwhelmed by failures, but I've learned that every setback is a step forward, an opportunity for growth. She looked out and saw nods of acknowledgement, the ripples of empathy pulsating among her peers. A surge of pride welled within her. She was not just a girl with dreams, she was a beacon of inspiration. The applause that followed her presentation enveloped her like a warm embrace, admiration echoing beyond the confines of the hall. As she stepped back, her heart soared, not just from the recognition but from the solid confidence she had unearthed within herself. She had faced her fears, transformed vulnerability into strength, and shown the world her authentic self. Just then, she spotted the imposing figure, the man who had first approached her, now standing at the foot of the stage. He smiled, that same glimmer of admiration in his eyes. You have a unique voice, Lucy. You've shared your truth today, and I see an even brighter future ahead for you, he said, his voice steady and sincere. The acknowledgement was profound, a validation confirming her journey. In that moment, Lucy understood the significance of her growth. It wasn't just about conquering doubts but embracing the fearless pursuit of her aspirations. She had transformed not only her narrative but the narrative some believed. She was bound to, a girl limited by fear, reduced to expectations. Instead, she emerged as a storyteller, an innovator, ready to take on the world. Months later, standing in front of a larger audience at the conference, Lucy delivered another resonant presentation filled with the same raw honesty. Each pulse of her words was met with empathy from the crowd. She had become a symbol of resilience. As she took a bow at the end, gratitude recoiled in waves. Lucy Mitchell had achieved more than recognition, she had claimed her place with solid confidence in a world that once stifled her voice. Her journey had shown her that challenges were opportunities, each failure a stepping stone towards mastery. She had become not only a source of inspiration for herself but for those who would find strength in her story. This transformation didn't mark the end, it was merely the beginning of a lifetime of narratives waiting to be shared. You need to subscribe now to witness more incredible transformations like Lucy's. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share this inspiring conclusion with at least 5 friends who need to see it. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and ensure we keep delivering emotional stories that resonate. And comment below your reactions and theories about Lucy's journey and what it means for your own. Your engagement matters now more than ever.